When most people think about South Carolina, they picture sandy beaches, historic Charleston, and charming southern towns. But beneath this peaceful image lies one of America's most surprising states. A place where thousands of wild monkeys live on a deserted island, where mysterious oval-shaped craters have puzzled scientists for generations, where one of the strongest earthquakes in American history struck without warning, and where a nuclear bomb accidentally fell from the sky. South Carolina is a land shaped by powerful rivers, ancient forests, hidden coastlines, and geological mysteries that few people know exist. Today, we're uncovering 15 incredible geography facts that reveal the wild and unexpected side of the Palmetto State. Welcome to Planet Earth Explorer. Let's begin. Explore. Let's imagine sailing through the quiet marshes of South Carolina. The water is calm. Herons glide above the reeds. Everything feels peaceful. Then suddenly, you notice something completely unexpected. Monkeys. Not in a zoo, not behind fences. Wild monkeys living freely on an island in the middle of the Atlantic coast. Welcome to Morgan Island. Home to between 3,000 and 4,000 rhesus macaques, it is the only free-ranging colony of these monkeys in the United States. The animals were brought here in the late 1970s after a research colony in Puerto Rico could no longer be used. Because the island is isolated by water, it became the perfect natural enclosure. Today, humans are not allowed to land there. Only authorized researchers may enter. Visitors can only observe the monkeys from boats as they swing through the trees and wander along the shoreline. It's one of the strangest sights in the American South, an island that feels less like South Carolina and more like a forgotten corner of Southeast Asia. Deep in central South Carolina stands a forest unlike almost any other in North America. Congaree National Park protects the largest remaining old-growth bottomland hardwood forest in the United States. Some of its trees rise more than 160 feet into the sky. Others are over 5 centuries old. Walking through Congaree feels almost prehistoric. Towering loblolly pines stand beside enormous bald cypress trees whose massive trunks disappear into floodwaters during the rainy season. The secret behind these giants lies beneath your feet. Every year, nearby rivers overflow, spreading nutrient-rich sediments across the floodplain. Instead of destroying the forest, these floods feed it. The result is one of the fastest-growing and tallest temperate forests on Earth. Standing beneath these towering trees, it's easy to forget you're in South Carolina. It feels more like stepping into a forgotten world where nature still reigns supreme. Open a satellite map of South Carolina, and you'll notice something extraordinary. Thousands of giant oval shapes scattered across the landscape. Each one points in almost exactly the same direction. These strange formations are known as the Carolina Bays. Some are dry, others are lakes. Many have become swamps filled with wildlife. But despite decades of scientific research, no one can say with complete certainty how they formed. Early researchers believed they were impact craters left behind by fragments of a giant comet. Others suggested they were carved by powerful winds during the last ice age. Today, most geologists favor explanations involving wind, shallow lakes, and long-term erosion. Yet several questions remain unanswered. Why are they all so similar? Why do they share nearly identical orientations? Even from space, the Carolina Bays look like mysterious fingerprints left across the Earth. More than 10,000 of them stretch across the southeastern United States, and they remain one of North America's greatest geological puzzles. At first glance, the Edisto River appears polluted. Its water is so dark that many first-time visitors assume something must be wrong. In reality, it's one of the healthiest rivers in America. The Edisto is the longest free-flowing blackwater river in North America. Its unusual color comes from natural tannins released by leaves, roots, and decaying vegetation in the surrounding swamps. These organic compounds stain the water, the same way tea stains a cup. The river winds for more than 250 miles through forests, floodplains, and wetlands before finally reaching the Atlantic Ocean. Because there are no dams blocking its course, the Edisto changes naturally with the seasons. New sandbars appear, flooded forests expand, wildlife follows the shifting water. Kayaking here is unlike paddling almost anywhere else. The dark water reflects the towering cypress trees like a mirror, creating an atmosphere that feels mysterious, peaceful, and timeless. It sounds like the beginning of a Cold War thriller, but it really happened. On March 11, 1958, a B-47 bomber was flying high above South Carolina carrying a Mark VI nuclear bomb. Then, during a routine operation, something went terribly wrong. A crew member accidentally released the weapon. The bomb plunged toward the small community of Mars Bluff. Fortunately, its nuclear core had not been installed, but the conventional explosives inside were still active. When the bomb struck the ground, it exploded with tremendous force. The blast destroyed a nearby home, injured several people, and left behind a crater more than 20 meters wide. Miraculously, no one was killed. Today, the crater still exists. Hidden among quiet neighborhoods, it serves as a reminder that one of the closest nuclear accidents in American history happened not on a battlefield, but in rural South Carolina. Imagine standing beneath a tree that was already centuries old before the United States even existed. On Johns Island, just outside Charleston, stands one of the oldest living organisms east of the Mississippi River, the angel oak. Despite its name, it isn't an oak tree touched by angels. The name comes from the angel family, who once owned the land. But there's nothing ordinary about this giant. Experts estimate the tree is between 400 and 500 years old. Its branches spread so far that they cast shade across nearly 17,000 square feet. Some limbs are so enormous that they touch the ground before curving back upward, creating the illusion of dozens of separate trees connected into one living structure. Over the centuries, the angel oak has survived hurricanes, floods, droughts, earthquakes, and countless tropical storms. Its twisted branches have become home to birds, insects, mosses, and countless other forms of life. Standing beneath its massive canopy feels less like visiting a tree, and more like entering an ancient natural cathedral. Sometimes the greatest monument in a state isn't made of stone, it's still growing. Most lakes hide rocks beneath their surface. Lake Marion hides an entire forest. When the lake was created during the 1940s as part of the Santee Cooper hydroelectric project, thousands of acres of woodland were flooded. There simply wasn't enough time to remove every tree before the water arrived. Instead, the forest disappeared beneath the rising lake. Today, many of those ancient cypress trees still remain. Some trunks rise above the surface like silent gray monuments. Others wait just below the water, invisible to passing boats. Their wood resists decay so well that much of the submerged forest still survives after more than 70 years. Early morning fog only adds to the atmosphere. Dead trees emerge from the mist like ghosts frozen in time. For boaters, they represent a serious hazard. For photographers, they're one of the most haunting landscapes in the American South. Lake Marion isn't just a reservoir. It's a flooded forest where time seems to have stopped. If someone told you the Atlantic Ocean once reached the middle of South Carolina, would you believe them? It sounds impossible. Yet millions of years ago, sea levels were dramatically higher than they are today. The shoreline stretched hundreds of miles farther inland. Today, that ancient coastline is preserved in a region known as the Sandhills. Driving through central South Carolina, you're actually crossing what was once a prehistoric beach. The evidence is still there. Shark teeth, ancient shells, marine fossils buried beneath forests and farmland. This ancient shoreline also marks one of the state's most important geological boundaries. Known as the fall line, it's where hard Appalachian rocks meet the younger sediments of the coastal plain. Nearly every major river changes character here. Calm rivers suddenly become waterfalls and rapids. Cities such as Columbia grew precisely because boats could travel no farther upstream. The modern landscape still follows rules written by an ocean that disappeared millions of years ago. Earthquakes are not something most people associate with South Carolina. That's exactly why what happened in 1886 shocked the entire nation. Late on the evening of August 31st, the ground beneath Charleston suddenly began to move. Within seconds, buildings collapsed across the city. Churches lost their towers, railroad tracks twisted, brick walls crumbled into the streets. Scientists estimate the earthquake reached at least magnitude 7. It remains one of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded in the eastern United States. The shaking was so powerful that church bells rang as far away as Boston. In many places, the sandy ground behaved almost like liquid. Water and sand erupted upward, creating strange formations known as sand blows. Even today, geologists continue studying this event because it proved something unexpected. The eastern United States may appear geologically quiet, but deep underground, ancient faults can still awaken without warning. Charleston's peaceful streets hide one of America's most surprising geological stories. At first glance, Boneyard Beach looks like the set of a post-apocalyptic movie. Bleached tree trunks stand motionless in the surf. Twisted branches reach toward the sky like skeletal hands. But this isn't the aftermath of a wildfire. It's the work of the ocean. Located on Bull's Island, Boneyard Beach exists because the Atlantic coastline never stops moving. Powerful waves gradually erode the shoreline. Salt water pushes farther inland each year. Eventually, forests that once stood safely behind the dunes become flooded by the sea. The trees die. Their bark falls away. The sun bleaches the remaining wood until it becomes almost white. The result is one of the most haunting coastal landscapes in North America. It also offers an important lesson. Coastlines aren't permanent. They're constantly changing. Boneyard Beach is a reminder that nature never stops reshaping the land, one wave at a time. Imagine walking through a quiet South Carolina wetland. The ground is covered with moss. Pine trees sway gently in the breeze. Then you notice something extraordinary. Tiny plants snapping shut on unsuspecting insects. The Venus flytrap is one of the most famous plants on Earth. But surprisingly, it naturally grows in only one small region of the entire world. Most people associate it with North Carolina, and that's true. But its natural habitat extends just across the state line into parts of northeastern South Carolina. Nowhere else on Earth can you find wild Venus flytraps growing naturally. The reason lies in the unique geography of the coastal plain. These plants thrive in nutrient-poor, acidic soils where most vegetation struggles to survive. Instead of relying on the soil for nutrients, they evolved an extraordinary solution. They catch insects. Tiny trigger hairs inside each leaf act like sensitive alarms. Touch 2 of them within seconds, and the trap snaps shut in less than half a second. It's one of nature's fastest movements, proof that even plants can become predators when the environment demands it. Every summer, something remarkable happens above Lake Murray. As the sun begins to set, the sky slowly fills with birds. Then, hundreds become thousands. Thousands become hundreds of thousands. Until nearly 1 million purple martins gather above a tiny island known as Bomb Island. From a distance, the flock behaves like a living cloud. The birds twist and turn together in perfect synchrony, creating swirling patterns that constantly change shape. The spectacle is so enormous that weather radar can sometimes detect it. Why here? Bomb Island provides the perfect combination of isolation, safety, and vegetation. After spending the day feeding across the surrounding countryside, the birds return every evening to spend the night together before continuing their migration later in the year. For a few magical weeks, one of the largest bird gatherings in North America takes place in the middle of a South Carolina lake. It's a reminder that some of nature's greatest spectacles happen on a schedule few people ever notice. Beneath the waters off Charleston rested one of history's greatest maritime mysteries, the H.L. Hunley, Built during the American Civil War, it became the first submarine ever to sink an enemy warship in combat. But success came at a terrible cost. Shortly after completing its historic mission in 1864, the submarine vanished without a trace. For more than 130 years, its final resting place remained unknown. Finally, in 1995, researchers located the wreck buried beneath layers of protective sediment just off the South Carolina coast. The mud had created an oxygen-free environment that preserved the submarine with remarkable detail. When it was raised in 2000, archaeologists discovered not only the vessel itself, but also the remains of its entire crew. Even personal belongings were still inside. Today, scientists continue studying the Hunley, using modern technology to better understand its final moments. It's far more than a Civil War relic. It's a time capsule preserved by the unique geography of the Atlantic seabed. Ask most people where the first European capital in what is now the United States was located. Many will answer Jamestown. Others might say St. Augustine. Very few know about Santa Elena. Established by the Spanish in 1566 on present-day Paris Island, Santa Elena became the capital of Spanish Florida decades before the English founded Jamestown. At its height, it contained homes, churches, military forts, and government buildings. Spanish explorers believed they had found the perfect location to expand their empire across North America. But geography had other plans. Poor agricultural land, supply problems, and conflicts with local indigenous peoples gradually weakened the settlement. Eventually, the Spanish abandoned Santa Elena and focused their efforts farther south in St. Augustine. Over time, the city disappeared beneath layers of soil. For centuries, historians didn't know exactly where it had stood. Only modern archaeology revealed its remarkable location beneath what is now part of the Marine Corps recruit depot on Paris Island. One of America's earliest capitals had been hiding in plain sight. In a world where coastlines are increasingly covered by hotels, roads, and cities, one remarkable place has remained almost untouched. The Ace Basin. Named after the Ashpoo, Combahee, and Edisto rivers, this vast estuary protects more than 350,000 acres of marshes, forests, and tidal wetlands. Seen from space, the rivers branch through the landscape like the veins of a giant leaf. Fresh water mixes with salt water. Tides reshape the marshes twice each day. Countless fish begin their lives here before swimming into the Atlantic. Migratory birds stop here during journeys spanning entire continents. Alligators patrol quiet backwaters beneath moss-covered trees. Unlike many coastal regions, large-scale development never transformed the AC Basin. As a result, it remains one of the largest protected estuaries on the eastern coast of the United States. It's a glimpse into what much of the Atlantic shoreline looked like centuries ago: wild, untamed, and still shaped almost entirely by nature. From mysterious monkey islands to prehistoric coastlines hidden beneath forests, from giant ancient trees to one of the strongest earthquakes in American history, South Carolina is far more than beaches and historic cities. It's a place where geology, wildlife, and history come together to create landscapes unlike anywhere else in the United States. Every river tells a story. Every forest hides a secret. Every coastline is still being shaped by the forces of nature, and perhaps that's what makes South Carolina so fascinating. The closer you look, the more extraordinary it becomes. So, which fact surprised you the most? Tell us in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for another adventure here on Planet Earth Explorer. Until next time, keep exploring.